Hi folks, and welcome back. Your old buddy Chris again. Thank you very much for subscribing or signing up to get these free videos delivered directly to you. Today, in our 21 series of videos, we're going to talk about unrealistic goals, revenue cost offsets. Just like most folks, we're going to talk about some fictitious people in a restaurant. We'll call them Jim and Mary. Now, Jim and Mary, just like you, had a passion for food. Jim decided to cash in his retirement package, and when Mary's company closed down their division, they agreed that they would cash everything in and open up a franchise business. They figured they'd be able to make a healthy living for themselves until they wanted to officially retire. They knew that there was space available at the local food court. Jim knew that he could do all the cooking that was needed. And all they had to do was sell a couple hamburgers to offset the cost of the franchise. Now, from the very onset, Jim and Mary had made a fatal error. They used revenue cost offset models to justify their expenses. Let me explain to you a little bit about what a revenue cost offset is. In the beginning, the franchise had figured out that if Jim and Mary could sell hamburgers, they could probably sell them for $5.95 a piece. If they were able to sell 100 hamburgers a day, they would make $595. Now, in order to cover payroll and some operating expenses, they'd have to sell an additional 50 hamburgers a day. That'd be about $300. And they could also sell an additional 50 hamburgers on top of that. That would give them $300 a day that they could put into their own salaries and into their own individual retirement accounts. Well, this sounds like a pretty good idea because after all you would be able to have to sell would only be 200 hamburgers a day. And that number looked really promising to them. Jim and Mary figured, well, at the end of the year, we'll make almost $450,000. Of that, $200,000 goes to our operating expenses, another $100,000 to payroll and expenses. Boy, that's over $110,000 a year we'll be making. And they signed on the dotted line as fast as they could. Unfortunately, like a lot of franchises, Jim and Mary ended up closing within a matter of a few months. You see, they didn't take into account the cost of goods when they calculated their hamburgers. They calculated everything on their cost of selling a hamburger for $5.95, when the actual profit that they were making per hamburger was a little bit less than $2 a hamburger. By the time everything was said and done, after the first couple months of opening, Jim decided to quit the franchise, shut the franchise down. He's working as a security guard now. His wife Mary took a job at the local dollar store. They've negotiated with both the franchise, the shopping mall, and the equipment manufacturer to be let go out of their leases, to pay a tremendous amount of a penalty fee, but it was a lot less than what they would have to pay if they had to fulfill the end of their lease. Well, what went wrong? What was it that caused Jim and Mary to go down this wrong path? It was the rosy picture that was painted by the franchisor as to how much money they would make by selling a hamburger for $5.95. If you are deciding to open up a franchise for yourself, you need to understand what the realistic costs are in that business. If you use unrealistic costs and unrealistic numbers, then you are doomed for failure. The most important thing in any kind of franchise before you start or talk numbers is the concept. You have to understand what the concept of that food service business is. If you don't understand what the concept is, if you can't buy into the concept, then you're just wasting your time with the franchise in general. Once you have the franchise concept down pat, then you can add the brand and make the brand better. Then you can build from a point of profit to say, yes, this is something I could do 365 days a year, 12 hours a day, and then I could throw my full self into it and become successful. Folks, if you're thinking about getting into the franchise business, be sure to check out the rest of the videos we have available in our series. Be sure to ask the right questions. How much profit do I make on items? Are they portion controlled? What are the realistic goals that you have set for me, and what kind of realistic goals can I truly look for to become successful in this business? Then I hope that the information you find in video number 2 is going to be just as helpful. We're going to continue to use the saga of Jim and Mary as a background for the examples that I'm going to give you from real life situations and real life problems that have taken places for people that own their restaurant franchises. So for today's lesson, a quick synopsis of it: unrealistic goals, revenue cost offset. Do not use the profit, do not use the full price, the retail price that you're selling your product for when you are projecting sales. Always use the profit that you make. Always use the profit that you would make per item to decide if that franchise is right for you or not. Until we meet again, this is your old buddy Chris wishing you the very best.